Shalom, everyone. Today's Torah portion is Emor. And in this Torah portion, we have first of all, in chapter 23, we have quite a series of instructions regarding all the holidays, the feasts of the Lord. I'd like to focus on one particular instruction that is extremely relevant to the period we are in right now. Verse 15. And from the day on which you bring the sheaf of elevation offering, the day after the Sabbath, you shall count off 7 weeks. They must be complete. You must count until the day after the 7th week, 50 days. Then you shall bring an offering of new grain to the Lord. Okay, so first of all, when does this counting begin? This instruction is given, this instruction regarding these two different offerings. This is actually a counting of 50 days between an offering that we learn about beginning in verse 9, an offering that is given, again, we have the same words, on the day after the Sabbath, and these instructions follow immediately after Passover. So the understanding is sometime during Passover, this special offering, what we call the Omer, is brought during Passover, and counting 50 days from that, you end up at a different holiday, which we're then going to learn about just afterwards, and this is called the Holiday of Weeks, or in Hebrew, it's called Shavuot, and in between those, we have 50 days. Okay, so first of all, you have a very interesting words here, on the day after the Sabbath. What does that mean? Does it really mean Sabbath, or does it mean something else? Now, our sages have seen, and this, of course, is Jewish tradition for thousands of years, that if you go back to the beginning of chapter 23, and throughout the chapter, when they're talking about the holidays, especially the festival of Passover and the festival of Tabernacles, both of those, the first and last days are different sort of days than the intermediary days. The first and last days are called holy, okay? And they're given a particular word. In Hebrew, it's called Mikra Kodesh, and it means that it is decreed or sanctified as a holy day. That same word, Mikra Kodesh, meaning a sacred occasion or a holy day, that same word is used at the beginning of chapter 23 in describing the Sabbath day. And therefore, the understanding is that the first and last days of these two holidays are as if they are a Sabbath day. In practice, there's slight differences between them, but those differences are really very, very minor. Therefore, the interpretation is when we talk about bringing the sacrifice just after or the day after the Sabbath, we are not talking about the Sabbath, which could then end up being at any given day during the holiday of Passover, depending on when the holiday falls in that given year. The holiday is on the 14th of Nisan, of the first month, and so a Sabbath any year can come in a different date. A consistent date means it's coming after the first day of the holiday. The first day being like a Sabbath, the next day is when we begin the count. And indeed, that has been how it was always celebrated, and exactly 50 days later, 7 weeks later, we have the holiday of Shavuot, or which is often referred to as Pentecost. Now, in the Bible, the counting here is very much an agricultural counting. It's a counting between two different kinds of harvests, the barley harvest, and then moving on to the wheat harvest. And the bookends of this counting are these two different holidays. Passover has a very historical meaning, but it also has an agricultural meaning. It is a holiday of the spring. And the word Aviv, Chag HaAviv, the holiday of the spring, has also been interpreted to refer to the barley harvest. So there are definite agricultural roots to these holidays. However, if you analyze the story in Exodus chapter 19, which is the chapter where we have revelation at Sinai. The actual revelation is in chapter 20, but we have 19 and 20, the preparations and the actual descriptions of revelation at Sinai. We see that begins at the beginning of the third month, okay? Beginning of the third month, and during the first couple of days of those months, if you look at chapter 19, you'll see initially they camped at Sinai. That was on the first day of the month. Then Moses goes up and down Sinai to God, bringing forth messages back and forth for the people. That would have happened over the second and third days of the month. And on the fourth day, he comes down with this instruction from God that today, and here I'm looking at verse 10. This is Exodus chapter 19, verse 10. Go to the people and warn them to stay pure today and tomorrow. Then let them be ready for the third day. So what's today, the fourth day of the third month? They need to also prepare on the fifth day. And on the sixth day, we will see revelation at Sinai. In other words, if we do a careful analysis of the verses in chapter 19, we will see that revelation at Sinai took place on the sixth day of the third month, which is the sixth day of Sivan. Sivan is the name we give for the third month, which is exactly the same day as the holiday of Shavuot, as is explained to us in Leviticus 23. And here we have two separate things coming together. We have a harvest, a celebration of a harvest that happens as the festival of weeks, and at the same time we have a celebration of the giving of the Ten Commandments, of the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. And over the years we have added special meaning to this counting. We are not just counting an agricultural count, we are counting in anticipation for that time when we will reach and Sinai and receive the Ten Commandments. Even to this day, we every single night count the Omer. We count every day how close we are to that wonderful day when we will be receiving the Ten Commandments. And during the holiday of Shavuot, we relive that giving of the Ten Commandments. We read it in the synagogue, and very often many people spend all night studying the Bible, the Torah, in order to relive the beauty and the wonder at the receiving of this first time Word of God by the nation. This has been a few words of Bible from the heart of Biblical Israel. I'm Sondra Oster Baras. Have a Shabbat Shalom.